Moments in life when everything feels like it's falling apart. Moments when the plans you trusted suddenly collapse, when the people you depended on walk away, and when the strength you thought you had is nowhere to be found. In those moments, fear speaks loudly, doubt whispers lies, and loneliness wraps itself around your heart like a heavy weight. But right there, in the middle of chaos, there is a truth that has stood unshaken for thousands of years. It comes from the book of Psalms, chapter 46, verse 1. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. This isn't just poetry. It's a promise. It's a reminder that no matter how dark the night becomes, you are never alone in it. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. The wind is howling, the rain is pouring, and the ground beneath your feet feels unstable. Everything around you tells you that you should panic. Everything around you tells you that you should run. But suddenly, you see a shelter. Strong, unshaken, safe. That shelter is what God represents in your life. He doesn't promise that storms will never come. He promises that you will never face them alone. Trouble is a part of being human. Pain is a part of the journey. But being abandoned in that pain is not your destiny. God doesn't watch your suffering from a distance. He steps into it with you. Sometimes trouble comes suddenly. You get a phone call that changes everything, a diagnosis you weren't expecting, a loss you weren't prepared for, a betrayal you never saw coming. In those moments, your heart asks questions your mind cannot answer. Why is this happening? Why now? Why me? And it's easy to feel like the ground beneath your life has disappeared. But Psalm chapter 46 verse 1 reminds you that when everything else falls away, God remains. He becomes your refuge, your safe place. He becomes your strength, your source of power when you have none left. Strength doesn't always look like standing tall without fear. Sometimes strength looks like taking one more step when you feel like giving up. Sometimes strength looks like getting out of bed when your heart is heavy. Sometimes strength looks like choosing to believe that your story isn't over, even when everything in front of you feels broken. God becomes that strength inside you, not by removing every obstacle instantly, but by giving you the power to endure, to survive, and eventually to rise again. One of the most powerful parts of this verse is the phrase, ever-present help. It doesn't say God was present. It doesn't say God will be present someday. It says He is ever present. That means right now, in this moment, in your pain, in your confusion, in your fear. God is not late. He is not absent. He is not distracted. He is present. Even when you don't feel Him, even when you don't see Him, His presence is not dependent on your emotions. His presence is constant. There are times when you may feel weak, times when you may feel like you cannot continue, times when your faith feels smaller than your fear, but your strength was never meant to come from yourself alone. Your strength comes from the one who created you, the one who knows every detail of your life, the one who saw your first breath and knows your last. He understands your pain in ways no human ever could. He sees the tears you cry in silence. He hears the prayers you whisper when no one else is around. Trouble has a way of making you feel isolated. It convinces you that you are the only one suffering. It convinces you that no one understands. But God understands. He is closer than you realize. He is not waiting for you to become perfect. He is not waiting for you to become strong on your own. He meets you in your weakness. He meets you in your brokenness, and He begins to rebuild what was damaged. Sometimes God doesn't remove the storm immediately because He is building something inside you that only storms can create. Resilience, faith, endurance, a deeper trust. The storm may shake you, but it cannot destroy you when God is your refuge. The trouble may wound you, but it cannot define you when God is your strength. Your current situation is not your final destination. Your pain is not your permanent identity. Your struggle is not your ending. Think about how many times you've survived things you thought would break you. Think about how many times you thought it was over, but somehow you're still here. That's not an accident. That's evidence. evidence that you are being carried even when you don't realize it, evidence that there is a strength working in your life beyond your own. God's help doesn't always come in the way you expect. Sometimes it comes as peace in the middle of chaos. Sometimes it comes as courage when fear tries to control you. Sometimes it comes as hope when everything feels hopeless. And sometimes it comes as the quiet reminder that you are not alone. That reminder can be enough to help you take one more step forward. Fear tells you that trouble will destroy you. Faith tells you that trouble will shape you. Fear tells you that you are alone. Faith tells you that God is with you. Fear focuses on the size of the problem. Faith focuses on the power of God. And when God is your refuge, nothing that comes against you is greater than the protection surrounding you. You may not understand everything you're going through right now. You may not see how things will work out. But you don't have to have all the answers to trust the one who does. God sees the bigger picture. He sees the purpose behind the pain. He sees the future beyond the present struggle. There is something powerful about knowing you have a refuge, a place you can run to, a place where you are safe. In a world that constantly changes, God remains constant. People may leave, situations may change, plans may fail, but God does not change. His strength does not weaken. His presence does not disappear. His help does not expire. You are stronger than you think, not because of who you are, but because of who is with you. God is your refuge. God is your strength. God is your ever-present help in trouble. That means your story is not over. That means your pain is not meaningless. That means your future is still filled with possibility. One day, you will look back at this moment and realize that what felt like the end was actually the beginning of something greater. You will realize that the trouble that tried to break you actually revealed the strength within you. You will realize that God was with you every step of the way. So today, whatever you're facing, remember this truth. You are not alone. You are not abandoned. You are not without help. God is your refuge. God is your strength. God is your ever-present help in trouble. And no storm lasts forever. There will be days when the weight of life feels heavier than you can carry. Days when your mind is filled with questions and your heart is filled with uncertainty. You may smile on the outside while silently fighting battles no one else can see. You may feel surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. But even in those quiet, painful moments, there is a truth that remains unshaken. God is still your refuge. He is still your strength. And He is still your ever-present help in trouble. He does not leave when things get hard. He does not walk away when you feel weak. He stays. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones inside your own mind. The voice of fear tells you that you are not strong enough. The voice of doubt tells you that you will not make it through. The voice of anxiety tells you that things will never get better. But God's voice speaks differently. God's voice speaks peace. God's voice speaks hope. God's voice reminds you that your current struggle does not define your future. What you feel today is not what you will feel forever. God sees every tear you cry, even the tears you hide from everyone else. He sees the nights when you lie awake, overwhelmed by worry. He sees the moments when you feel like giving up, but somehow keep going. Nothing about your pain is invisible to Him. Nothing about your struggle is ignored. When Psalm chapter 46 verse 1 says, He is an ever-present help, it means He is present in your darkest hour, not just your brightest moments. You may wonder why trouble exists at all, why pain is part of life, why heartbreak happens, why loss happens. These questions are human, they are honest, and even in those questions, God is not offended by your pain. He understands it. Trouble has a way of revealing where your true refuge is. It reveals what you depend on. It reveals what you trust. And when everything else fails, God remains the one place that never collapses. There are moments when you feel like you are standing at the edge, unsure of what comes next. Your plans may have failed. Your expectations may have been broken. Your future may feel unclear. But God specializes in meeting people at the edge. He specializes in bringing strength to those who feel empty. He specializes in bringing light into darkness. What feels like the end to you may actually be the beginning of something greater than you ever imagined. God's strength works differently than human strength. Human strength runs out. Human strength gets tired. Human strength breaks under pressure. But God's strength does not weaken. His strength does not fade. His strength does not depend on circumstances. When you rely on Him, you are connected to a source that cannot fail. Even when your body is tired, even when your emotions are exhausted, God's strength continues to carry you forward. Sometimes God calms the storm around you. Sometimes He calms the storm inside you. Both are miracles. Sometimes the situation does not change immediately, but something inside you begins to change. Fear begins to lose its control. Peace begins to replace anxiety. Hope begins to rise again. That is God working within you. That is God being your refuge and strength. You may not realize it now, but you are growing stronger through everything you are facing. Pain has a way of shaping you. It teaches you endurance. It teaches you faith. It teaches you that your survival does not depend on perfect circumstances. It depends on God's constant presence in your life. Every challenge you overcome becomes evidence of His strength within you. God does not measure you by your worst moments. He does not define you by your failures. He does not abandon you because of your weakness. He sees your potential even when you cannot see it yourself. He sees who you are becoming. He sees the strength being formed inside you. He sees the future waiting ahead of you. There will come a time when the pain you feel today will no longer control you. There will come a time when the fear that once overwhelmed you will no longer have power over your life. There will come a time when you will stand stronger, wiser, and more resilient. And when that day comes, you will realize that God was your refuge all along. Trouble may visit your life, but it cannot stay forever. Pain may come, but it cannot last forever. Storms may rise, but they cannot remain forever. God's presence is greater than any temporary struggle. His strength is greater than any temporary weakness. His help is greater than any temporary trouble. Even when you feel forgotten, you are not forgotten. Even when you feel abandoned, you are not abandoned. Even when you feel weak, you are not without strength. God is with you right now. Not yesterday. Not tomorrow. Right now. In this very moment, His presence surrounds you. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is simply refusing to give up. Simply choosing to believe that better days are coming. Simply choosing to trust that God is working even when you cannot see it. Faith is not the absence of fear. Faith is choosing to trust God in the presence of fear. God is your refuge when life feels unsafe. He is your strength when you feel weak. He is your help when you feel helpless. This truth does not change based on your circumstances. It remains constant. It remains reliable. It remains unbreakable. One day, your story will inspire others. One day, your survival will become someone else's hope. One day, your strength will remind someone else that they can survive too. And when that happens, you'll realize that God used your trouble to reveal His strength. So hold on. Even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when you don't understand, hold on. Because God is your refuge. God is your strength. God is your ever-present help in trouble. And He is not going anywhere